Hey, what's up, everyone? It's your boy Bobby B, and I'm here to break down Super Bowl 59, the Chiefs versus the Eagles. So, this is actually a really exciting matchup on paper. I think a lot of people hate these teams, though. So, if you're not a Philly fan, if you're not a Kansas City fan, you probably don't care much for this game. But I think it's going to be a good game nonetheless. I'm actually a Broncos fan, so I can attest that, I've seen this Chiefs team go from Mahomes starting his second year to being the dynasty that it is now, and I have a lot of respect for Mahomes, despite the controversial calls and all that. I can't stand Kelsey just because the fandom and craziness, and because my mom's a crazy Kelsey fan, but he is an elite tight end, and you got to give him credit where it's due. We'll be going over those guys as we go through this, though. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people wanted this matchup to happen. They wanted Bills and Commanders, but on paper, I think the Bills would have blown them out because of the Commanders' roster's just not there yet. But they did a great job getting to where they got. Nobody had them going to the NFC Championship. But the fact that Jaden Daniels is this good as a rookie is insane. So they have a bright future. But I think this is the best matchup that could have happened. I would have loved the Bills and Eagles as well. But I don't know how that would have been because Josh Allen doesn't have as many weapons as he used to have, and he's still been playing great, MVP caliber, and he almost made it to the Super Bowl. So I guess we'll never know. But here we are, Eagles Chiefs, Super Bowl 59. The first matchup we got, the first key matchup are the quarterbacks. So we got Hurts and Mahomes. They matched up before. Last time they played was 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns, 79 yards, and he had 300 yards passing and 1 passing touchdown. He also had, at the time, he had Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith, who he has going into this. But his knee was banged up a few weeks ago. He was wearing that knee brace. He took it off during the Commanders game. He had it on at the beginning, then he took it off, and he did all right. He did well enough to just, not turn the ball over and keep the Eagles in the game. So he kind of was able to rely on Saquon. He had a nice tush push. And he had that, he had 17 yards, I think, rushing. So that's actually surprising given the fact that they actually said that his knee was bothering him. Because I went into that game thinking as a sports fan, his knee's all right. They're just lying. But he actually did confirm that his knee was not the best. But yeah, he did all right. Played turnover-free football for the most part. And Saquon just did his thing, got him to the Super Bowl. So going into this, though, Hurts has had a weird season, very inconsistent. I think he'll step it up in the Super Bowl, but he's just not Mahomes. So for that, I'm going to have to give the first edge to the Chiefs because Mahomes has been terrific. Every time he plays in the Super Bowl, he's done stellar. Aside from that Brady and Buccaneers Super Bowl, that was terrible. His last 4 Super Bowls, though, hear me out. First one, he had 2 touchdowns, 2 picks against the 49ers. The Super Bowl he won. Second Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, he had 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. I believe he had at least 185 yards. He's had at least 185 yards for each Super Bowl, but I'm trying to remember how much he had during that Bucs Super Bowl. I think that was his least amount of passing yards because they were pretty locked down that game, and they beat him by a large chunk. So his third game, though, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks against the Eagles. And then the last game, last year's Super Bowl against the Niners, he had 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. So a favorite bet this week for a lot of gamblers is Mahomes to hit that over 1.5 for 2 passing touchdowns. I actually think that's going to be a lot harder than people think, though. So, nonetheless, Mahomes gets the edge. He's been, he's the guy you want the last 2 minutes. He's the modern day Tom Brady of this generation because he's clutched in the last 2 minutes. And people are speculating whether or not he becomes the GOAT after this. No, Brady's still the GOAT, and Mahomes still has the ways to go. So, plus he never beat Brady in the playoffs, and he had 3 chances too. So that's, that speaks volumes in itself. And moving on to the next one. So Chiefs got 1 check mark right now. They got the edge for quarterback. Mahomes is better than Hurts and also more healthy going into this game. So next, we got the running backs. I have to give this to the Eagles, obviously. Saquon's had an MVP caliber season, up to 2,000 rushing yards, and he's had a crazy amount of touchdowns. He's been top tier. Like, this is the best season we've seen from a running back in a long time. And he could break the record if he gets 30 more rushing yards. He could break Terrell Davis's record from 1998 when my Broncos won the Super Bowl and he was MVP. So we'll see. Saquon's definitely better than Kareem Hunt and Pacheco, though. Kareem Hunt has scored every game of the postseason so far, though, for touchdowns. So anytime touchdown, that's a good bet for Hunt. But I wouldn't bet on it because the Chiefs, you never know who they're going to use, Pacheco or Hunt. Hunt's just been more consistent lately, and Pacheco's had a rough comeback since he came back from his injury. He hasn't been running as hard since that injury happened. So we'll see what they do with them, but they'll split their carries. Kareem Hunt will probably get more. Pacheco will come in though still. So we'll see how they do. But yeah, that edge goes to the Eagles. So 1-1, Chiefs, Eagles are tied right now. Eagles got the edge for running back. Chiefs got the edge for quarterback. Moving on to wide receiver one. Wide receiver one, you got A.J. Brown versus Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy stepped up huge since the last 5 weeks. He's been Mahomes' favorite target by far, which I might be exaggerating 5 weeks. More so during the playoffs, but the last 2 weeks where they started the season, yeah, I'd say 5 weeks. Let's go with that. Because they didn't play week 17 because they let my Broncos beat up on them because they wanted, us to get in the playoffs. So thank you. But Worthy is not on the level of Brown. Brown balled out last time that he came into the Super Bowl with Hurts and company. He had 96 yards and a touchdown last time they played. He's also one of the most bet on players this week, as well as what the books are saying. So he's a favorite to score a touchdown as well. I think he's a plus 100 favorite, something 100, 155. So somewhere along those lines. But yeah, he's the favorite going into here. Obviously, he's going to have a tough matchup, though, against Trent McDuffie. And McDuffie's been locked down. We'll get into him later. But yeah, A.J. Brown's better than Worthy. So easy check off there. Eagles up 2-1. Wide receiver 2, Devontae Smith versus Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has been the second most consistent receiver. You got to remember, Marquise Brown just came back at the end of the season. D-Hop was their guy the majority of the season after he got traded from the Titans. Keep in mind, Rashee Rice has been out this whole time too, injured reserve. So, yeah, that's been a huge factor for them because they were kind of just in a limbo looking for receivers, and they got D-Hop, and then they got Hollywood, but Hollywood got hurt as well. Hollywood's back now. So you could argue Hollywood Brown's the wide receiver too, but I'm going off the stats here. Hopkins is the number 2. Hopkins versus Smith. Smith has had a better season than Hopkins. So Smith gets the edge here. Wide receiver 2 goes to the Eagles. So Eagles are up 3-1 right now. And then wide receiver 3. Chiefs get the edge here because nobody else knows who Jahan Dotson is, okay? Like, after Brown and Smith, these guys just throw in Dotson, and sometimes they'll get some random catches. He'll get some random catches, or their other receivers will come in and grab some. But Juju played huge 2 weeks ago against the divisional matchup Texans. He had a lot of huge catches. He stepped up when the Texans defense is arguably one of the toughest defenses in the league. If you watch ball, you know that because they were balling out and they made the Chiefs look rough in that game. So Juju stepped up though and has huge upside for when he's coming in, as well as Hollywood Brown. So you could put wide receiver 3, Hollywood Brown and Juju against the wide receiver 3s of the Eagles, and Brown and Juju just, they outdo them. They look better. They come in, they'll make some huge plays. Juju's really inconsistent. That was like a anomaly game he had, by the way. But Hollywood Brown is their deep vertical guy. So the Chiefs, I think, are 31st in the league when it comes to passes over 10 yards, which sounds really bad. But when they play the way that they do, where they grind it out, they get those tough third down conversions, time of possession, that's how they play now. It's not the big plays that they used to have when they had Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, that 1-2 threat, which was crazy. This is a different team. So that's why a lot of fans are upset Mahomes hasn't bought out, but you got to keep in mind, they don't got that speedster Tyreek Hill, and Mahomes and them have kind of forced this chemistry to come together and just make things happen, which has worked. Surprisingly, it's worked. But when your team is as good as the Chiefs, you can get away with that. When you have a quarterback like Mahomes, you can have, small margins of error like that are caused by these differences in the roster that in the mid-season and late in the season. But we give the edge to the Chiefs for wide receiver 3+. So Chiefs 2, Eagles 3. Let's keep moving on. Tight ends, Dallas Goedert versus Travis Kelce, Noah Gray. And then there's, what's his name? Grant Caltara, or I forget. My apologies, Eagles fans. But Goddard versus Kelce straight up. Kelce's going to take that. Last Super Bowl they had against each other, Kelce balled out. Kelce's stats the last 4 Super Bowls he's had, he goes crazy during the postseason. So forget what he did in the regular season. Last 2 weeks against the Bills, he dropped a huge pass, only had 2 catches, 19 yards. But he's going to bounce back in the Super Bowl. I know a lot of lines are favoring him in the books, but he will bounce back. I'm sure he'll have at least 25 yards for sure, maybe 40 at the minimum. He'll probably have 4 catches at the bare minimum as well. So Kelce last 4 games of the Super Bowl, though. 6 catches, 43 yards, 10 catches, 133 yards, 6 catches, 81 yards, and 9 catches, 93. So yeah, he stepped up every time they've been in a Super Bowl. And that 10 catches for 133 was when they were getting blown out against that awesome Buccaneers defense with Brady, under center. So that was kind of a blowout game, but still, 10 catches, 133 yards is impressive in the Super Bowl. And he had 2 touchdowns in 2 of those games. I forget which 2 they were. But he stepped up every time they needed him in the Super Bowl. So I have him just because of his, elite legacy that he's built so far, and just the guy he's always been since he's been in the league. He's always been a consistent target. He's getting older now, but still give the edge to Kelce. Goddard's a heck of a tight end, though. Really underrated. So Kelce here, Chiefs 3, Eagles 3. Offensive line. So I gave this edge to the Chiefs because of one reason. Landon Dickerson got hurt, and it kind of seems like they were jumbling around to get a guy in. I forgot who they got in. Cam Jurgens has been a decent replacement for Kelce, but that tush push is still effective and still great nonetheless. The Eagles still got a great offensive line, but with Landon Dickerson hurt, that compromises them. And I haven't seen many reports on him. Somebody in the comments or whatever, please tell me what you know, because I think Dickerson's going to play as of now, but he's not 100%. So that hurts them. So we gave it to the Chiefs offensive line because of that. So by default, kind of gave it to them out of that. Defensive line. This one was hard because you got Carter. Jalen Carter's been a dog. And you got Jordan Davis and Milton. Those guys have been all dogs this year. They've been scrappy, and the Eagles' run defense has been pretty tough overall. However, defensive line for the Chiefs, you got an interior defense with Chris Jones and George Karlaftis as a defensive end. They've been a terror. They have single-handedly been wrecking games. I don't care what anyone says. So watch out for them. They're more scary because they got Chris Jones. So because of that interior defense, I gotta give it to the Chiefs. So we got the Chiefs up 5-3 to the Eagles. So sorry, Eagles. Those were very close ones, and I kind of gave the offensive line to the Chiefs because of that default. But going into the cornerbacks, we're going back to the secondary now. We got cornerback 1, Trent McDuffie, lockdown Pro Bowler. He's been in the league 3 years. Since he's been in the league, the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl. So that's crazy. And he's got a great defensive coordinator in Spagnuolo. So this guy's been a baller. And you got the young cornerback from the Eagles, Quinyon Mitchell. And, he's been a stud. But you cannot say he's better than McDuffie when McDuffie's had this much success in the league. So due to the resume, due to the history of what McDuffie's done, we're giving that to the Chiefs. Chiefs are up 6-3. But the last 2 were very close calls. Well, offensive line and defensive line were close calls. So 6-3 Chiefs. Cornerback 2, we got to give it to the veteran, Darius Slay. I know the Chiefs got their cornerback, Watson, back right as the postseason started. I think it was week 16 he was good to come back, or week 17. But yeah, he's come back. He's done pretty well. But Darius Slay's locked down. He's still a veteran that can run with the young guys, and he's shown that in the postseason. So I got Darius Slay. So 6-4, Eagles 4, Chiefs 6. Next, linebackers. All right, so we got Zach Bond, who has moved up in the, Defensive Player of the Year rankings, even though my boy Pastor Tan definitely deserves it. And you got Burks, who stepped up for Nakobe Dean. And Burks has been all right, but they have been exposed to tight ends. Zach Ertz just destroyed them last week. I know the Eagles destroyed them with the score, but you got to keep in mind Zach Ertz. And the week before that, who did the Eagles play? The other tight end for the Packers was going crazy on them as well. And that's not something you want to hear when you have Kelsey on the other side. So, oh no, it's the Rams. It's the Rams tight end that went off. Higbee. Yeah, that was the tight end that went off. Yes. So overall, Ertz and the Rams tight end, they compiled like 167 yards the last 2 weeks against these guys. So that's why we got to give the linebackers edge to the Chiefs, because they got Leo Chanel and that's not how you say his name, but Drew Tranquill as well, who's been Mr. Consistent, and Nick Bolton, who's a dog. So got to give it to the Chiefs. Eagles have a great linebacker in Zach Bond, though. So keep that in mind. He's going to be a wrecking crew on Sunday. So Chiefs 7, Eagles 4. I'm losing my mind here, but we'll keep it up. So strong safety, you got C.J. Gardner, the Eagles strong safety. He's been all right. Statistically, though, Justin Reed and Hicks have been better on the other side. So you got to give this one to the Chiefs because of Justin Reed and how much he's been balling. Statistically, I think he has more tackles, more pass deflections. So he's been a better strong safety in coverage. And then that would put the Chiefs at 1, 2, 8. 8 is what they're at, to the Eagles 4, which this looks bad, but we'll go over it. All right, free safety. Blankett's just been a stud. Him and what's his face, that white corner they have that I forgot to mention. Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean has been the best rookie corner. Arguably, yeah, he's been the best, because Riley Moss was doing great the first 8 weeks till he got hurt, and then he came back and he wasn't the same. I know that because the Broncos were really excited to have him back, and then he got cooked by the Bengals receivers, and he got cooked by the Bills receivers. So he kind of had a weird comeback, rude awakening, so to speak. But Cooper DeJean has been crazy good. Him and Reed Blankenship together on that defense. Everyone's shocked to see two white guys go at it like that and be that good. But hey, the cracker back in Cooper DeJean, he's got it. So still got to give it to McDuffie, though, because McDuffie's been long. Free safety, Reed Blankenship will take that because he's just been a stud this year. All around, probably one of the best safeties in the league. Kickers, Butker. So, oh yeah, we got to update this. So 8-5. 8-5. Eagles at 5, Chiefs at 8. Kickers, though. Butker versus Jake Elliott. You got to give it to Butker. Jake Elliott's had a lot of inconsistencies. Butker, meanwhile, has been nothing but consistent. The only thing that he's done wrong is say all the stuff that he said when he was on that podium, because that gave him a bad look and it was very controversial. But that's the only thing he's done wrong. His kicking, nothing is wrong about it. He's been a great kicker, and he has been clutch for them. So, especially in the playoffs, you need a guy like Butker, kind of like the Chiefs' version of Adam Vinatieri, just not like Adam Vinatieri yet. So, Butker wins that. Then we got the Chiefs at 9, Eagles at 5. Kick returner. This one's tough. I had to give it to the Eagles, though, because Kenneth Gainwell's had some impressive returns, and that's why I gave it to the Eagles. So 9-6. Yep, sounds right. Next, punters. This one was the really close one because Braden Mann and Matt Araiza, they have the same, literally you can look it up, I think it was 46.3 or 43.6. They have the same yards in their punts. They average the same amount of yards when they're punting the ball. But Matt Araiza, he has a higher percentage of pinning the ball when it's 20 yards or less, which is what you want in terms of field position, which is why the punter position matters, because if you're able to place the ball where the team has a disadvantage and you get them at the 1 yard line or so, or closer to their end zone, that gives them a huge disadvantage, makes them uncomfortable. So Matt Reeves is the guy there, not by much, but he's the guy. So 10-6, Chiefs are up. Head coaches, you guys already know what I'm going to say. Andy Reid, because Nick Sirianni was on the hot seat earlier this year. Some Eagles fans didn't even want him to be here. So the fact that he's led him to a Super Bowl, props to him, because he's back and he's showing all the haters wrong, trying to prove something. So good on him. However, Andy Reid's just that guy. He's the Albert Einstein of the league. He's just a genius. He's just an offensive genius. So everybody knows what he's done that has watched the league more than 5 years. So everybody knows how good Andy Reid is. So the Chiefs get that edge. 11-6. Offensive coordinators. You got the young Kellen Moore, young offensive coordinator coach for the Eagles. He's been stellar with this group. He's kind of really opened it up for them. And he's been a huge part of why Saquon's been balling this year and why the receivers look as good as they do. So good on him. I did not see the Hurts season I thought that we would see from Hurts with Kellen Moore, but he still had a great season nonetheless, obviously, because they're in the Super Bowl. And same thing could be said for Mahomes and Matt Nagy, though. Mahomes is 14th in passing in the league this year, but then again, they've been in those weird situations where they grind the clock out, time of possession. They're not really trying to come back at the end. They're not really playing from behind, so you don't got to pass it that much when you're playing from the front, when you're in the lead. So given that, we can kind of give some grace, kind of just giving this to Nagy, given the resume and what he's done. I know a lot of these picks have been like that, but it's the Chiefs, and it's kind of what they've established, so it's kind of hard to give Kellen Moore the edge, even though he's had a lot of success. So, Chiefs 12, Eagles 6. Last but not least, defensive coordinator. This has to go to Vic Fangio. I know Spagnuolo is, a genius in his own right, and he's done very well with this Chiefs defense, but Fangio's a mastermind. You got to keep in mind, I'm a Broncos fan. And when he was our head coach, we had the best defense in the league, top 5. And that was when they were saying all we needed was a quarterback to put us over, the hill. And that was when we got Russell and Nathaniel Hackett, and then it all went to crap. But Vic Fangio is what he's been able to do with the Dolphins last year, the Steelers, the Broncos. He has all of that on his resume. And he has this group this year doing crazy things. These young rookies stepping up in big moments and being ball hogs. So I am going with Vic Fangio. However, this is a key stat here. He's 0-7 against Mahomes. Granted, he played, he coached the Dolphins and he coached the Broncos. So there's a few games there that we can give him some grace on because the Broncos didn't really have an offense when he coached against Mahomes. And that was when Mahomes had Tyreek Hill. So, give some grace to him there. We got to give it to Vic Fangio. That puts the Eagles at 7 and the Chiefs at 12. And that's all we got right here. That's all the matchups I decided to break down because I think that's every matchup that you need to have. However, the fans are a huge impact as well. I think Philly fans are crazier, but we've seen Kansas City fans go all out for the Chiefs as well. So I think it's pretty tied, but I think Philly fans are crazier, so you got to give the edge to the Philly fans. But Mahomes is unbothered. Hurts seems unbothered by the fans, so it might not really be a favorable matchup. It might not even matter, honestly. So I'll give it to the Eagles, though, as having crazier fans, just what I've seen. And, yeah, that pretty much wraps up every matchup we could think of. However, for my pick, I'm going to go with the Eagles. And this is how I think the Eagles win. They control the ball. They use their MVP, Saquon Barkley, and they just ground control, only pass when you need to, take deep shots when they're not expecting it, and control the game. Also keep in mind, the only thing holding the Eagles back is their quarterback. So there might be some liabilities at the O-line. That's kind of a red flag going into this. But Jalen Hurts, if he does not perform up to the expectations and what they need of him, and if Saquon is not able to run the ball all over the Chiefs, it's going to be up to Hurts. And Hurts will not pull this one off if he does not perform up to the standard of what he needs to. He needs to play turnover-free football. He needs to probably throw a touchdown or two because Barkley could easily get two as well. I think the Eagles win this game as long as they score 28 points or more. And in saying that, I actually picked this score, and on ESPN I picked this score to be 27-24, Eagles over Chiefs. So, kind of hypocritical saying that, but at the same time, I was thinking the defenses are way better than they were last time. It could be even lower scoring than 27-24. So I feel like 27-24 is a higher score than what the Super Bowl is going to be because people forget these defensive lines are crazy. These secondaries are both really good. It's going to be like a hard-earned first down every drive. It's going to feel like that. So it's kind of going to feel like how the Commanders, when they were going against the Eagles, how every first down was earned. Jaden Daniels had to work to get out of the pocket. His receivers had to find a way to get open to him and make some space, and he just had to make something out of nothing. I feel like that's how this is going to go for both teams, but I could be wrong. Usually I'm wrong about something, so I hope I'm wrong about it being a lower scoring game. I could see it being like 14-10 going into the fourth quarter because these defenses are just playing so well. But eventually someone's going to get open, and eventually someone's going to get space. And if it's a lower scoring game, I think that actually benefits the Eagles because they have the better run game. So this is a really hard Super Bowl to predict, and I usually don't do money lines or any of that, or I don't advise anyone to bet on money lines because it's super hard to predict who will win. At the end of the day, it's any given Sunday. And, nobody had the Giants beating Brady when he beat him twice in the Super Bowl. And I think this is a type of Super Bowl where we could get an upset with the Eagles. And a three-peat's never been done before, so keep that in mind. History is against the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, the way they have won this year, those close one-score games, it just seems like a lot of those they were going to lose. And I feel like the Eagles are the best team to go against them. That could beat them. So, in saying that, only the Bills and the Broncos would beat them. The Broncos win was a fluke. The Bills win was an actual beatdown. Like, they just controlled the game, and they looked better, and they had it under control all the time. And Mahomes and them were kind of just trying to figure it out. But, yeah, I think the Eagles are a tough match for the Chiefs, and I think it's the toughest team they will go against all year. So we'll see how they do. I'm going to run it back with some parlays since it's the last game of the season, and I'll have a straight bet for you guys. But I had to make a video. I had to post my predictions because I figured, a lot of people were kind of underrating this game and underestimating how good it's actually going to be. If I was a fan of either team, I'd be really excited. As a fan of the Broncos, I'm not really excited to watch, or I'm excited to watch, but not really excited to see who wins. To me, it doesn't, really make me excited seeing the Eagles or Chiefs win. It will be cool to see Saquon get a ring, though. And I will say that if the Chiefs win, at least DeAndre Hopkins finally gets a ring, even though he basically was just on the team this year. Huge part of their team during the regular season, like I said before. But now that he gets the Super Bowl ring with them, if he wins, they're going to look at his postseason and be like, what'd you do, bro? You had no catches the last two games. I think he might have had one, but he's been a non-factor. Meanwhile, Kelsey, Mahomes, and Xavier Worthy, they've been the main guys on that offense. Same with Hunt as well. So those four have really been the most consistent for the last two games they played. So I'm just looking at this roster of the Chiefs and thinking, who's going to be the guy that's going to step up when they need a vertical deep shot? Obviously, Kelsey's their most consistent target from short to medium passes, but who's their deep shot guy? It's Hollywood Brown. And we'll see if he comes up with something crazy uh, in this game. But like I said before, the Chiefs have only allowed, or they're 31st in passes over 10 yards. So they haven't really allowed that offense to freely just sling the ball. They've been more controlled and more passive, and that's why I'm not sure if we're going to see a high-scoring game or not. I hope we do, but we'll see. But thank you guys, for those of you that watched. I hope this helps you out with those of you that are betting, and those of you that are just interested in the sport, love of the game. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown, but I did my best to come up with these, and I tried to be unbiased best I could. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs have the edge over the Eagles, 12-7. So we'll see if I'm wrong, but I hope to be right. So we'll see. Eagles are going to win, in my opinion, but on paper, it's in favor of the Chiefs. But if the Eagles control the game, like I said, they'll win pretty easily. So we'll see. Chiefs have every advantage, though, when it comes to their coaches and players. So aside from the defense, I'm a little nervous going into this if I'm the Eagles.